In the small town of Oak Grove, Missouri, lived the Thompson family. The head of the family, 52-year-old John Thompson, worked as a manager at the local bank. His wife, 49-year-old Mary Thompson, was a homemaker. The couple had two daughters, 27-year-old Sarah and 24-year-old Emily. Sarah worked as an elementary school teacher, was married to Michael Green, and had a 2-year-old son. Sarah's family lived in their own house, a 5-minute drive from her parents. Emily, the younger daughter, had recently graduated from college and worked at a local law firm. She still lived with her parents. The Thompsons were considered a prosperous and respected family in Oak Grove. John was known for his community involvement, while Mary actively participated in the local church life. Sarah and Emily grew up in an atmosphere of strict upbringing and high moral standards. On the surface, the family's life seemed ideal. However, behind the facade of well-being lay complex relationships and secrets that ultimately led to tragedy. The events that unfolded in the Thompson family shocked not only Oak Grove but the entire country, becoming a subject of discussion in national media. The roots of the tragedy go back to the Thompson sisters' childhood. Sarah and Emily had always been very close, despite their age difference. In their teenage years, their relationship began to take on a more intimate nature. The first incident occurred when Sarah was 16 and Emily was 13. During summer vacation, when their parents were away for the weekend, the sisters engaged in sexual contact for the first time. Both girls experienced mixed feelings after what happened: fear, shame, but also mutual attraction. They agreed to keep what happened a secret and not to repeat it. However, after a few months, the incident recurred, and gradually secret meetings became regular. The sisters carefully concealed their relationship from their parents and those around them. Outwardly, they led normal lives, dating boys, studying, and participating in sports. No one suspected the nature of their connection. After graduating from high school, Sarah went to college in another state. The separation temporarily interrupted the sisters' physical intimacy, but they continued to communicate by phone and internet, exchanging intimate messages. Emily struggled with her sister's departure and eagerly awaited her return during holidays. When Sarah graduated from college and returned to Oak Grove, their relationship resumed with new intensity. Now both were adult women, aware of the wrongness of their relationship, but unable to resist their mutual attraction. Sarah's return to Oak Grove after college marked a new stage in the Thompson family's life. The parents expected their older daughter to start building a career and think about starting her own family. John and Mary did not hide their desire to see Sarah married to a worthy young man. Soon, Sarah met Michael Green, a promising engineer working at a local construction company. Their relationship developed rapidly, and after a year, they announced their engagement. The wedding took place 6 months later. The parents were delighted to see their older daughter following the traditional life path. However, behind the outward well-being lay a completely different reality. Sarah's marriage to Michael did not end her secret relationship with Emily. The sisters continued to meet, using every opportunity to be alone. This created additional tension and guilt, especially for Sarah, who was now a married woman. Emily, in turn, experienced strong jealousy towards Michael. She struggled to hide her emotions at family gatherings, which did not escape her mother's attention. Mary began to notice oddities in her younger daughter's behavior, her inexplicable coldness towards her brother-in-law, and excessive attachment to her sister. The situation became complicated when Sarah became pregnant. The news of the future grandchild delighted the whole family, except for Emily. She fell into depression, began to avoid family gatherings, and completely immersed herself in work. The parents attributed her behavior to stress and fatigue, but Sarah understood the true reason. The birth of Sarah's son became a turning point. Emily, unable to withstand the emotional tension, confessed to her sister that she could no longer live in such a situation. She demanded that Sarah choose between her family and their relationship. Sarah, torn between love for her sister, attachment to her husband and son, found herself in an extremely difficult emotional state. The tension in the family reached a critical point when Mary accidentally discovered intimate correspondence between her daughters on Emily's phone. Shocked and confused, she didn't know how to handle this information. Mary decided to talk to her husband first, unaware of the tragic consequences this decision would bring. June 15, 2023 became a day that would forever change the life of the Thompson family. The morning began as usual. John went to work at the bank, Sarah was busy with household chores and caring for her son, and Emily was preparing for an important meeting with a client at the law firm. Mary, tormented by the truth she had discovered about her daughter's relationship, decided to act. At 11:30, Mary called her husband at work and asked him to come home urgently, saying that something serious had happened that required immediate discussion. John, concerned by his wife's tone, excused himself from work and returned home around noon. At 12:15, Mary and John sat down at the kitchen table, and Mary told her husband about her shocking discovery. John initially didn't believe what he heard, but when Mary showed him the correspondence between their daughters, his reaction was extremely emotional. He flew into a rage, shouting and threatening to immediately expel both daughters from the family. At 1 o'clock, John, ignoring his wife's attempts to calm him down, called Sarah and Emily, demanding that they come to the parental home immediately. Both daughters, unaware of the exposure of their secret, agreed to come after work. Sarah arrived first, around 5:30. Entering the house, she faced her father's anger and her mother's tears. John unleashed a torrent of accusations and insults at her. Sarah, stunned and frightened, tried to justify herself and calm her parents. At 6:15, Emily arrived. Seeing the tearful Sarah and enraged parents, she immediately realized that their secret had been exposed. John attacked Emily with accusations, calling her a corrupter and a disgrace to the family. Mary tried to intervene, calling on everyone to calm down and discuss the situation. The tension reached its peak around 7 o'clock, when John, in a fit of rage, grabbed a kitchen knife and began threatening his daughters. Mary tried to take the knife away from him, but in the ensuing struggle, John accidentally stabbed her in the stomach. Seeing blood on her mother's clothes, Emily lost her composure. She snatched the knife from her father's hands and, in a state of affect, stabbed him several times in the chest and neck. Sarah, trying to stop her sister, received a deep cut on her hand. When Emily finally dropped the knife, a deathly silence fell over the room. John lay on the floor, bleeding out, while Mary, clutching her wound on her stomach, tried to call emergency services. Sarah, pressing her wounded hand to her chest, stared in shock at what was happening. At 7:23, Emily, realizing what she had done, ran out of the house and got into her car. She drove away in an unknown direction, leaving behind a scene of bloody tragedy. Emergency services arrived at the scene at 7:35, a few minutes after Mary's call. Paramedics immediately began providing first aid to John Thompson, but his injuries were too severe. At 7:58, John was pronounced dead at the scene. Mary and Sarah were taken to the local hospital with moderate injuries. The Oak Grove Police Department immediately began an investigation. Detective Mark Anderson, the lead investigator on the case, arrived at the crime scene at 8:15. He found a scene indicating a violent struggle, broken furniture, blood traces, and the murder weapon, a kitchen knife with fingerprints. The initial questioning of Mary and Sarah at the hospital gave investigators a general understanding of what had happened, including the motive for the crime and Emily's role as the main suspect. The police immediately declared Emily Thompson wanted and began an extensive search. On June 21, 2023, 6 days after the murder, the police received an anonymous call. The caller reported seeing a woman resembling Emily at a motel on the outskirts of Kansas City, about 30 miles from Oak Grove. An operational team immediately departed for the specified address. At 11:40 that same night, the police surrounded the motel. After a short siege, Emily Thompson surrendered without resistance. She was arrested and taken to the Oak Grove police station for questioning. During the first interrogation on June 22, Emily Thompson admitted her guilt in her father's murder. She described in detail the events of that evening, confirming the information received from Mary and Sarah. Emily also revealed details of her long-term intimate relationship with her sister, which had begun in their teenage years. Investigators conducted a thorough search of the Thompson home and the personal belongings of Emily and Sarah. Computers, phones, and personal diaries were seized, providing additional evidence of the incestuous relationship between the sisters. The Thompson case caused wide public resonance. Local and national media covered every turn in the investigation. The residents of Oak Grove were shocked by the tragedy that had occurred in a family they considered exemplary. On June 29, 2023, the district attorney brought formal charges against Emily Thompson. She was charged with second-degree murder, which in Missouri carries a punishment of 10 to 30 years in prison or life imprisonment. Sarah Thompson was not charged with any crimes, but her reputation in the town was seriously undermined. She took leave from school and began seeing a psychotherapist to overcome trauma and feelings of guilt. Mary Thompson, having recovered from her physical wounds, found herself in a difficult emotional situation. She had lost her husband, one daughter was on trial for murder, and the other was involved in a scandal that had destroyed the family's reputation. The trial of Emily Thompson began on September 15, 2023 in the Jackson County Circuit Court. The case attracted attention not only from the local community but also from national media, which covered each day of the hearings. The prosecution, led by District Attorney James Harrison, built its case on physical evidence found at the crime scene and Emily's own confessional statements. The key argument of the prosecution was that Emily acted in a state of strong emotional excitement, but had enough time to cool down before inflicting the fatal blows to her father. The defense, led by experienced attorney Robert Fisher, chose a strategy based on Emily's psychological state. They argued that years of hidden relationships with her sister, constant fear of exposure, and emotional pressure from her parents led to Emily being in a state of temporary insanity at the moment of the crime. A key moment in the trial was the testimony of psychiatrist Dr. Elizabeth Chen, who had conducted several sessions with Emily after her arrest. Dr. Chen presented the court with a conclusion stating that Emily suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and depression caused by years of concealed relationships and fear of society's reaction. Sarah Thompson was called to court as a witness. Her testimony was particularly emotional and contradictory. On one hand, she confirmed the fact of their relationship with Emily, which strengthened the defense's position. On the other hand, she could not forgive her sister for killing their father, which played into the hands of the prosecution. Mary Thompson also testified in court, recounting the events of that fateful evening. Her testimony was restrained and sad. She did not directly accuse Emily, but also did not try to justify her, which left a strong impression on the jury. Emily herself gave testimony on the last day of the hearings. She fully admitted her guilt in her father's murder, expressed deep remorse, and asked for forgiveness from her mother and sister. Emily spoke in detail about the development of her relationship with Sarah and how fear and shame gradually destroyed her mental health. After 5 days of deliberations, on September 22, 2023, the jury reached a verdict. Emily Thompson was found guilty of second-degree murder, but with mitigating circumstances. On September 25, Judge Michael Dawson announced the sentence. Emily Thompson was sentenced to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 10 years. The judge also ordered that Emily undergo mandatory psychological rehabilitation during her incarceration. The sentence provoked mixed reactions in society. Many considered it too lenient, given the severity of the crime. Others, on the contrary, believed that the court fairly took into account all the circumstances of the case and the psychological state of the accused. After the sentencing, Emily was transferred to the Missouri Women's Correctional Facility to serve her sentence. Sarah and Mary left the courtroom without commenting to the press, which further fueled public interest in this tragic story. The Thompson case left a deep mark not only on the lives of those directly involved in the events but also on the entire Oak Grove community. A year after the sentencing, the consequences of the tragedy continued to be felt. Emily Thompson began serving her term at the Chillicothe Correctional Center for Women in Missouri. According to prison administration reports, she adapted to her new living conditions and actively participated in psychological rehabilitation programs. Emily continued to maintain correspondence with her mother, but contacts with Sarah were completely severed. Sarah Thompson faced serious difficulties in trying to return to normal life. Her marriage to Michael Green fell apart 6 months after the trial when the truth about her relationship with her sister became known. Sarah was forced to resign from her teaching position due to pressure from parents of students and colleagues. She moved to another state, trying to start life with a clean slate, but the struggle with depression and feelings of guilt continued to haunt her. Mary Thompson remained in Oak Grove, despite the difficulties associated with constant attention from society. She sold the family home, which had become a source of painful memories for her, and moved to a small apartment. Mary continued to attend church, finding solace in faith and support from some members of the congregation. She regularly visited Emily in prison and tried to restore her relationship with Sarah, although progress was slow. The Oak Grove community took a long time to recover from the shock caused by this tragedy. The Thompson case became a reason for broad discussions about family values, mental health, and the role of society in identifying and preventing similar situations. Local authorities initiated a series of programs for psychological support of families and adolescents. The Thompson case also attracted the attention of researchers in psychology and criminology. Several scientific papers were published analyzing the psychological and social aspects of this tragedy. Some experts used this case as an argument for the need for a deeper study of family dynamics and its impact on mental health. The media continued to occasionally return to the Thompson story, especially in the context of discussing complex family relationships and their consequences. Several documentaries and books were dedicated to this case, causing new waves of public interest. For the Missouri state legal system, the Thompson case became a precedent in considering cases related to domestic violence and crimes committed in a state of strong emotional excitement. Some lawyers and legislators began a discussion about the need to revise laws concerning such situations. Overall, the tragedy of the Thompson family left a deep mark on the lives of many people, serving as a reminder of the complexity of human relationships and the unpredictability of their consequences. It also raised important questions about the role of society in supporting people in difficult life situations and the need for more open discussion of taboo topics in family relationships.